Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, the USA Today NFL Wire site that, of course, covers the Arizona Cardinals. And I've got, for our second show of the week this week, the second normal show with Seth and me, Seth Cox from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site. And this is our Cardinals-Rams preview. It's our preview picks and props. Tonight, recording on a Thursday night. It's been a busy Thursday night. Seth had a football game. I was watching ASU. There was Thursday night football. But we've got the Cardinals-Rams. This is going to be, I think it's going to be episode 589. My preview show with Cam DeSilva Rams Wire dropped on Thursday during the day. This one will drop on Friday, and Howard has an audio update as well. So you'll get two. You have two to listen to on a Friday before hitting the weekend as the Cardinals open at home against the Rams. Seth, let's talk about this Rams team because, one, they are banged up, but two, despite, they probably should have won that game against the Lions, and the Lions ran all over them.
Well, and it was almost like the Lions forgot that they can just run the ball at will, right? And so, it just ended up being a game that was closer than it really should have been. I mean, to your point, this was it was a competitive game because the Lions decided that they were just going to try to get Amon-Ra St. Brown involved. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, but sometimes you don't have to force it, right? We lamented quite a bit about the Cardinals, inabilities and things like that to manufacture touches for Marvin Harrison Jr. in game one. But the flip side of that is to get yourself out of rhythm by trying to manufacture touches for a great player. I mean, don't get me wrong, Amon-Ra St. Brown is fantastic, but I mean,
but they're getting production from other people. That's the thing. It's different. Like the Cardinals weren't getting much from other players.
Right. And so
Jameson Williams had his come out game, 5 catches, 121 yards and a touchdown. David Montgomery had 91. Though granted, 40 of those, 50 or 60 of those came on the last drive in overtime. But yeah, and, Sam Laporta had 4 catches for 45 yards, so that's impactful. Jahmyr Gibbs had 74 yards from scrimmage. They didn't need to force it. They didn't.
Right. And only 3 catches on 6 targets. It just don't create that situation, and instead just control the game. And it seemed like every time that they tried to do too much to throw the ball, it ended up impacting them negatively. I mean, Jared Goff is still kind of Jared Goff, right? He's better than he was at the end of the Rams tenure, but I think, I think last year at the same point, there was a little, it was a little much of he's 30-12 is not anything to write home about, right?
It's nice, but
yeah, it's a nice season.
He is a quarterback you can win with, but he's not going to carry the team. It's what he was when he was with the Rams. He is a capable enough quarterback to win a Super Bowl, but he's not going to. Mahomes carries his team. Matthew Stafford carries the Rams. Aaron Rodgers carries his teams. He isn't going to carry a team. He can play at a high level. He is a less prolific Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the whole realm of those guys now, right? You've got Cousins.
There's so many Kirk Cousins.
Brock Purdy. You've got all these guys and they're all in the same vein, but in differing things. And so that's that's kind of what you look at it and how you look at what these guys are. And at the end of the day, I think you have to be excited about uh, what they can do this week, because the Rams, they weren't bad. I think you and I would
No.
agree with that. They weren't bad, but I thought that the numbers were a little skewed, right? Like they were playing from behind most of the game, and so they were really trying to get back into it. And then once they caught up, it's almost like they didn't know what to do at that point, right? Like they're like, oh crap, it's we're ahead. Like, what do we do now? And so, I thought obviously Cooper Kupp was unbelievable,
It
as
was the Cooper
always.
Cup. It literally was the Cooper Cup show. He had 21 targets, 14 catches, 110 yards. And I think there was a stat that came out that just in the amount of motion he ran before this ball was snapped, he ran like over 400 yards worth of motion.
And they
I
didn't
don't
look particularly good running the ball.
No.
I mean,
and
the long rush on the game was a 12-yard carry by former Arizona Cardinals great Ronnie Rivers. Like it's just one of those situations where it was an interesting game, and like you said, Matthew Stafford carried them, but at the same time, he kind of put them in holes too, right? Like that
But
was the
in fairness, that
well, he's
offensive line, what in the world?
yeah.
that offensive line, offensive line was a mess because they started the season without Alaric Jackson, their left tackle. He's suspended for 2 games. He's going to miss this week. Rob Havenstein, their right tackle, was out. They moved Steve Avila from center to left guard, and Jonah Jackson played center. Jonah Jackson's never played center. That was a decision that was made in like the last 2 weeks. Joe Noteboom, who used to be their starting left tackle before he got hurt, and then Alaric Jackson has proved to be pretty good, played and then got hurt, and so they had a practice squatter, AJ Akuri, who was atrocious. Aiden Hutchinson just absolutely just dominated that game. He had 4 quarterback hits and a sack. They hit Matthew Stafford 12 times, and it came mostly from the edge. Marcus Davenport had half a sack and 4 hits. Hutchinson had a sack and 4 hits. Anwazarike had 2 hits. This was. I mean, Matthew Stafford was under, and then the run game didn't work well. But we have to understand that Detroit's run defense is incredible. And so 18 carries for 50 yards for Kyron Williams with a long of 9. He averaged 2.8 per carry. It was amazing that the Rams were in the game because their defense wasn't bad, and their edges, their young edges, showed some promise. Jared Verse had a sack. Byron Young had a sack, and those are guys that we're going to talk about that. They're going to be guys to watch in this game. And so what we have is a Rams team that found ways to make plays. Cooper Kupp is back. Puka Nacua got hurt. It kind of has to, unless Kyron Williams, which we're going to talk about, if they don't have that run game, it has to be the Cooper Kupp show, because the rest of the receivers are fine. Like Ty Johnson, they had 5 catches for 79 yards. 63 of those came on one play. So he had 1 big play, and he had 4 catches for 16 yards after that. It was, Colby Parkinson's an okay tight end. Tyler Higbee's still out right now. Demarcus Robinson, he's okay. It's something else, this Rams team, and they come in this week banged up. It's going to be interesting to see who they start at left tackle. It's probably going to Warren McClendon if Rob Havenstein is back. They're going to have a new left guard. They're going to have No, Jonah Jackson will be back at left guard. They got Bo Limmer at center, and Kevin Dotson, though he got hurt, he's going to be there at right guard. So the tackle situation could be interesting, especially if Havenstein can't play, and it's McClendon at right tackle, and then it's either going to be Ty Nsekhe or Jaron Christian, both of whom signed with the team this week. So doesn't it feel like this is absolutely like kind of a game that the Cardinals need? And so let's talk about the keys to this game. What must the Cardinals do to win this game?
I think the first thing that you look at is they have to, do a better job of controlling the line of scrimmage, right? You've got a team in LA that you kind of mentioned it, right? Didn't run the ball well, didn't stop the run well. That's kind of where the Cardinals need to live, and we know that they can do that. I'm not going to compare their offensive line to Detroit's. It's not quite at that level yet, but it's getting there, right? They're getting the right pieces in place, and they're getting closer. So you look at it, you've got a chance where you really have to control the line of scrimmage and make Matthew Stafford throw 50 passes again, right? Like 49 pass attempts is a ton. And 317 yards looks good, but to 49 pass attempts to get there, like it was a lot of work for him to get there, right?
Yeah, it was, and then nearly half of those were thrown in Cup's direction. Yeah, it's the Cardinals. Like if you look at what Detroit did, so I guess one of the keys is they need to run the ball effectively. But I'm going to say this: you can't go in with a run-heavy plan. The Cardinals now have boundary receivers, and I said this on our last show. I think, and I got this feeling because taking from Arizona State, they've got a young quarterback, redshirt freshman Sam Levitt. If you're an ASU fan, I just watched the ASU game tonight. The other night against Mississippi State, they ran the ball extremely well, and Levitt looked terrible because they all did. He never got into rhythm. He looked much better Thursday night against Texas State. He did pretty well in the season opener as well. And I think in part that when the Cardinals are over-reliant on the run game, it comes at the cost of the rhythm in the pass game. And when you're running the ball really well, that's great. But like last week, they stopped running the ball well. Basically, almost all, over a third of their rushing yards came on two plays, the 29-yarder from Kyler and the 20-yarder from Connor. And then it wasn't an efficient. That's they ran the ball really efficiently last year. And so, but they were going for 1 and 2 yards instead of 2, 3, 4, and then busting because they weren't getting that last week. And without the pressure on the boundaries, which I feel that the Cardinals need to make a concerted effort for some Cliff Kingsbury like Pat. Like, remember what Cliff would do with DeAndre Hopkins? You would see what 10, early in the game, especially if they're down at all. You would see over and over and over again 6, 7, 8 yard outs to DeAndre Hopkins just to get the ball in his hands. You can do that. You can do that with Marv. He's the type that you can do that with.
And you really need to, right? Like you need to manufacture some touches for him in this game.
And do it early. So at least you've got the threat of the perimeter. Because once Buffalo adjusted to that middle of the field and the, all around the line of scrimmage, you bunch guys in there, didn't have the same production offensively. And unless you can push the boundaries to the intermediate boundaries or down the field, you're not going to be able to maintain that the entire game.
Right. And that's, going to be a key to this game is them being able to hit play action pass, especially, use the run and set up the pass and then hit some big plays down the field, they're going to need to push the ball vertical a little more, and being able to do that is going to force teams to then play back more, and then you can really hit them with that running game and close out games as opposed to just grind out games, right?
Correct. The Cardinals edge guys, except for the nullified sack, won no one-on-ones against the Bills tackles. That said, Deion Dawkins is a good left tackle. Spencer Brown just got a nice contract extension. He's a good right tackle. The Rams have questionable tackle play right now. You're gonna be seeing Warren McClendon, maybe AJ Curry, maybe Ty Nsekhe, who was on the street recently, and maybe a banged up Rob Havenstein that's maybe 75-80%. The Cardinals edge guys need to produce something. They need to produce something. Julian Okwara was signed to the active roster. I don't know if that means that. I don't know if that means if they have a plan for him already, or if that is simply he just becomes the back of the roster guy, because they already had Jesse Luketa inactive in week 1. It's going to be interesting seeing how they use Okwara, if at all, in their rotation. But let's get Zaven Collins a sack. Let's get somebody a sack off the edge. Let's get Mac Wilson a sack. But they've got to get pressure on Matthew Stafford. We say when the Cardinals won in Los Angeles, I think it was 2021, that year that they beat the Rams. It was because the offense played well, and they made Stafford get off his spot, and he made mistakes. Stafford, for as great a player as he is also prone to making mistakes when it has to get off his spot. He will turn the ball over. He will make errant throws. But when he's in rhythm, he's as good as any of the greats in the NFL. So they have to get him off this. They have to do that. And I think they have to. I don't think they need to. They don't need to like shut down Kyron Williams. They absolutely cannot do against him what they did against him last year. It was literally nothing.
Well, and it's got to be one of those situations too where they can't be multiple, right? Like they can't be getting off in the run game and in the pass game. If Matthew Stafford throws for 1,000,000 yards, it is what it is, right? But like they can't have Kyron Williams go for 150 yards and Matthew Stafford go for 300 yards and expect to even be competitive in this game. So they have to be able to take away something from this game in order to get something going, right?
Yeah, and then we need Kyler. Kyler's got to be great. Kyler needs to be great. He needs to be more than just efficient. And I know in a way they're not asking him to do too much, but he needs to be more than just efficient. He needs to be at minimum efficient and also make plays in the passing game. And we need to see a pass. We need to see him going for 250 passing yards. We don't need to 350, but 230 to 250 needs to be kind of the norm. Partially because they need to be multiple on offense, and two, the narrative for Kyler, he needs to prove it as a passer as well.
Yeah, and they just have to continue to build on that, and that's why I said his EPA per play was 3rd overall, meaning he was doing enough to win this game. It's just that their defense was 28th and I think 32nd in defending the pass, if I remember right. So like basically you and I were out there defending the pass at most of the game, right? And so you have to get something from somewhere else, but you also need, there's an interesting comment about how Kyler was, one of the, I think I said 5 or 10 best quarterbacks last weekend. And somebody was like, yeah, but the second best in the game. It's like, yeah, well, that's because
That's because
the other
Josh
guy
Allen.
is the second best quarterback in
How
the
did Josh
NFL.
Allen not get AFC Player of the Offensive Player of the Week?
I don't pay attention to that because of that stuff. Who got it? I'm interested.
It was Joe Mixon. He had 150. He had 159 rushing yards and a touchdown for the. But I mean, Allen had 2 touchdown passes too. Greg Rousseau got Defensive Player of the Week. So the Cardinals once again.
Should have
The
been
Cardinals
should've been-
opponent got another Player of the Week, which I think it was like 5 times last season. Something crazy.
Do you think he sent a bouquet to to Kelvin Beachum?
Oh, jeez. Who's going to be the starting right tackle?
And I think you described it perfectly. Like his niche is not a coming off the bench player, which makes you wonder if there's like a better way that they could have gone about that, right? Like have somebody that's more comfortable coming off the bench into that situation. I think he's going to actually, when I say fine, I don't mean like he's going to be a top 10 right tackle, but like I think he's going to be good enough in this game.
Well, he talked about it. He talked about it on Thursday with reporters. He said, it's while he went as a pinch hitter this last game and finished the game, like preparing as a starter means that his body and his mind has to focus on one side of movement instead of having to get reps on both sides and have to worry about mirroring his drops and his sets. And so, yeah, although, I mean, he's primarily going to be going up against Byron Young, who was fantastic last year as a rookie and already has a sack this year. So, yeah. And so that the edge that they're young and they're talented because they have Jared Verse, they've got Byron Young out there, and then that's not even mentioning the fact they got Braden Fisk and last year's stud in Kobe Turner as well. So
yeah. And interestingly enough, Fisk really struggled in the game. I don't know if that's overly surprising. That was one of our concerns, right? Is that
then they ran the ball.
Yeah.
that's where you can expose him a bit at his size. But let's talk matchups then. Coming up next on the Rise of Receiver podcast, Mr. Cardinals talking about. Let's move on and talk about the individual matchups that we're excited and perhaps worried. What are those matchups that matter? That's coming next on Rise of Sea Red. We're back on the Rise of Sea Red podcast, Mr. Cardinals talk on the web, talking Cardinals-Rams, week 2 at State Farm Stadium. What are the matchups? What are the individual matchups? What are the key matchups for you that you are both most excited about, most worried about, or believe are going to be key?
I think the first matchup that's going to be key is kind of one that you've talked about, and that's what do they do against this pass rush, right? Jared Verse, you mentioned it, had a sack, and 2 quarterback hits and 3 hurries. Byron Young had a sack and a hurry. Like that's what those edges can do. Paris Johnson was one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL in week 1. On the flip side, and we've beaten this into the ground, and I'm not trying to do that, but Kelvin Beachum was one of the worst, and that's you can't have that. Like obviously we don't want a reduction of Harris's play, but if you can have him continue playing at top 5 to 7 left tackle, and you can get Kelvin in the top 16 of right tackles, I think what you saw from the rest of the offensive line is really exciting.
Yeah, the interior guys moved really, really well, and so I'm a little less concerned about because from what Cam said is that they primarily stay on one side. So Verse is gonna rush the left tackle side and is gonna go up against Paris Johnson. He'll probably, especially since Verse is a rookie and Paris is like. I mean, Verse might get a better of him once, but I don't know if it'll result in anything. And so Byron Young, who was great last year against Kelvin Beachum, is you're going to want to watch that. But yeah, the interior guys between between Evan Brown and Will Hernandez and Yilda Froholt, they were mauling guys. They got out really, really well. And this is a team that they should be able to run on, especially on the interior. Kobe Turner, fantastic pass rusher. He's not as strong a run defender. Braden Fisk could be a liability in the run. So I guess kind of my next matchup to watch is James Conner versus their defensive front seven, which looks a lot different. There's no Aaron Donald. They traded Ernest Jones, and so they've got, and Christian Roseboom is banged up a little bit, and then Troy Reeder, and so you've got the opportunity to kind of set up your offense. They do like to run the ball early to set things up, and that can be kind of the way to do it.
Yeah, and they're going to have to be able to take advantage of those overly aggressive pass rushers, as you talked about, running behind them as they're running past and things of that nature, and getting ready, and putting themselves in a position to be able then to slow that down and then throw the ball, as we discussed. So I think that's one thing. The other thing that you have to look at that's interesting, and I haven't followed enough of what they do or how they play in their secondary, and he does flip sides, but Kobe Durant had a really nice game and
hasn't practiced this week.
Yeah, so that'll be one to watch, right? But
Trey Wyatt will probably end up against Marv. They also had there's another injury, so one of their starting safeties who also plays in nickel will probably be the one to guard a lot of Greg Dortch is Quentin Lake, and he popped up on the injury report on Thursday. So yeah, this Rams team,
Tre'Davious White guards Marvin Harrison, then that's a good thing. he was really bad against the Lions. He was the one trying to guard Jamison Williams most of the time. So
let Marv cook.
Right. And so like you said, it's going to be interesting because they do flip sides, right? And they do have a guy trail. So if they go with that with Marv, that could be a good thing. But I think they have to be able to take advantage of that. And like you said, wherever he ends up, they need to be able to really go after it.
It's Cardinals somehow. Again, Cooper Kupp moves all over the place. Now he lines up a lot in the slot, so that will fall on Garrett Williams. But that'll depend on how they're doing coverage. They did a lot of cover zero, the most in the NFL. I don't think they can do that against Matthew Stafford. I've always mixed those two up. I don't know why I said Sam Bradford. It's Matthew Stafford. I don't think that they can do cover zero against Matthew Stafford, especially with Cooper Kupp. But Garrett Williams against Cooper Kupp, I think it's going to be a team effort against Cooper Kupp. And then the defensive line against Kyren Williams, please. Let's not have this be a 150-yard game again.
I mean, we can only hope. I mean, it's really hard, right? Because you look at it and you say, hey, you know the matchups. You know that Cooper Kupp is going to be tough to stop, and you know that Kyren Williams is really kind of feasted. So at some point, no matter what you scheme, no matter what you do, players have to make plays. And I think that's kind of where it's at with this one, right? Like we know what to expect with those two guys. They've really enjoyed success against the Cardinals. So if the Cardinals really, want to have a chance in this game, as we mentioned, it's going to come down to, think about what Kyren Williams did last year, man. 2 games, 36 carries, 301 yards rushing. Only 1 touchdown, so they at least, held him out of the end zone. But that's absurd. Those are like, that's like Madden on easy numbers. By the way, he also had 6 receptions for 61 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. So, I mean, overall, this dude put up 362 yards and 3 touchdowns on what is it? 42 touches. 42, like that. I mean, have some pride, man. Like, just have some pride in your.
Well,
in your
and that's
game.
the thing that was disappointing last week is the Cardinals upgraded their defensive line. Justin Jones, Bilal Nichols, Kyrus Tonga. Those guys are supposed to be good run defenders. And while James Cook, like overall, their rushing numbers were okay.
I mean, that's one of those things. I'm with you 1,000%. They underperformed their pay.
It just didn't look like there was
the reality.
They didn't push the line of scrimmage that well. There weren't.
Right.
When they ran the ball, it felt like they were getting 3, 4, 5 yards. It felt like that the running back was getting through the line of scrimmage rather than being dragged down and getting 2 yards. And I want to see more of that. Isn't that what you wanted to see with the addition of Nichols and Jones, is to see just stronger upfront play?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be. And you know, the only saving grace is obviously you're not playing Josh Allen, and so you don't have to worry about the quarterback running the ball. I mean,
absolutely.
That's because he was the one that ate them alive, right, in the run game. The short passes killed them to James Cook. I mean, James Cook really hurt them in the passing game more than the running game. And again, I understand that that's part of the defense, but that goes more to, linebackers and safeties.
Yeah.
And so, like, these guys, I mean, you look at what Cooper Kupp's done against this team. He's got a couple clunkers in there. The one loss that kind of sticks out, he had 3 catches for -1 yards, and then last year he had 3 catches for 18 yards in their blowout win of the Cardinals in November. But, like, for the most part, this dude just kind of feast on the Cardinals and
everyone, honestly, when he's healthy.
And that's kind of where you're at, right? Like, you're looking at this and you're saying, like, hey, let's, one guy can't beat us, but also we can only let one guy get loose. Like,
right.
Again, you can't have 300 combined yards again between Kyren Williams and Cooper Kupp in one game.
But if Kupp goes 14 catches for 110, you can live with that, because that's not super impactful. That's a lot of manufactured touches. In fact, his longest was 21 yards. So you go from that, it's 13 catches for 89 yards, which is not all that productive mathematically as we go. You're looking at less than 6 yards a catch, which is running back reception numbers, right? And so they were just getting the ball in his hand over and over again. And I mean, he was their offense. I mean, he accounted for about a quarter of their offense by himself. But yeah, it's those matchups are going to be more important. But yeah, it's that, and the fact that this Rams team's banged up, and this is a game. I mean, regardless, it's a home division game. If the Cardinals are going to be good this year, they have to win 2 of their 3 division home games. You can't afford to lose those games. And they went 0-6 last year in the division. They just can't. They haven't beaten the Rams in 10 years at State Farm Stadium. That's something absurd. It's absurd. Can't do that. So, yeah. So every matchup will be important. So coming up next on the Rise of Sierra podcast, the Best Our Cardinals Talk. Let's talk outcomes and some betting. We've got our predictions and our props, and that's coming up next on Rise of Sierra. We're back on the Rise of Sierra podcast, the Best Our Cardinals Talk on the web. I am I don't know if it's optimistic. It's feels cautiously hopeful that I think the Cardinals can win this game. Not because I think they match up well against the Rams. I think the opportunity there is to steal this win. The Rams are banged up. The Cardinals are at home. They don't want to go to 0-2. They can't. I mean, if the Cardinals are going to make a run late, they can't dig themselves too big a hole. And by putting the Rams in an 0-2 hole, that would be very, very interesting for the division. And so I feel like this is a game the Cardinals are gonna win, but it's not going to be easy. It's going to be.
But it never is, right? Like it
No.
never is with them, and that's kind of what it boils down to, is that they have to come out and the line shifted from Cardinals +1.5 to -1.5 with all the, as you've kind of astutely pointed out, all the injuries that the Rams are dealing with. I'm actually incredibly surprised that we have all of these prop bets. Aren't you a little bit? For the on the Ram side, at least, with all the uncertainty, with all the health, especially the O line, and it's they're typically a little more conservative, and so it's interesting to get them all now and probably take advantage of them, right?
Yes, absolutely. And so let's talk outcomes first. And so my game prediction is it matched is almost exactly what Cam DeSilva picked, but on the other side. I think the Cardinals win this one 24-20. Of course, that's with a 1-point advantage. Right now, BetMGM has -1, so they're 1-point favorites. So they win, they cover. And then the total, I think this one, rather than the high scoring affair that the Cardinals had and the Bills had last week, is going to be a little slower paced because the Cardinals are going to run the ball. The Rams are going to try and run the ball. And I think ultimately it's not going to hit that 48. Well, was it at 48.5 or 47.5 before? Because now it's sitting at an even 48.
I thought it was 47.5 when I looked earlier. Yeah, so mine's still 47.5 here.
Okay. So yeah, I've got the under going in this game. How do you see this game playing out?
Yeah, I think for the Cardinals to win, it's got to be the under, because we've just seen that they can't compete in shootouts, because once their defense gets to the point of no return, it's really hard for their offense still to compete, and that to me screams like, hey, they gotta hit the under in this one if they're going to win the game.
Yeah. Okay, what are you saying? What's your score prediction for this then?
In this one, I'm thinking that it's going to be a close one. I'm going to go 24-21. Cardinals win it late.
Ooh, fun. Now some props. Jump in on this one immediately if you can. This is the one I told you guys about last week, and then the line shifted that you couldn't make as much money. Greg Dortch over 3.5 catches +120. It moved down by the end of the week to over, like last week that moved down to 2.5 and then at -130. But if you'd have gotten in at the over 3.5 with the plus money, that's a winning bet, because Dortch is going to get touches. Because he's around the line of scrimmage for a lot of the stuff. And so he and Trey McBride will be the safety blankets. He'll be the security blankets for Kyler Murray. So until the odds makers catch up on that, eat up that money. Get it over 3.5 for Dortch.
And you're +120, you said?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So the other thing is this, guys, make sure whatever book you use. So again, I use FanDuel.
That's BetMGM. I'm looking at right now.
Yeah. So I use FanDuel. So they usually have alt receptions, right? So we've talked about the ladders before. I think this is another great spot to ladder 5, 6, 7 even. But make sure that sometimes their numbers are off, which is weird, right? And so you'll get a glitch where like their 4+ receptions could be higher than their over 3.5 receptions, which is the same bet. But so just take a peek before you place that. But yeah, I'm all in on that as well, because I just think it's going to be one of those things that consistently happens, right? Short, second and 2, and he checks to a quick slant to Dortch. 3rd and 7, he checks it down underneath the Dortch. Like those things are going to continue to happen. The one I'm interested in with you, Jess, Trey McBride over 5.5. So he had the 5 in game 1, had the bad drop. So it should have been 6, and probably with that drop, because he finished with 540, he probably would have picked up 20 to 30.
He was 5 and 30 for that game.
Yeah, so he probably would have picked up 30+ yards on that. I mean, there was nobody around. That was one of the better Drew Petzing calls of the day in the second half. So 5.5. That's they're hugging that line, and I feel like that's where he's going to live every week.
Yeah. Well, what's the line on?
It's basically even money. It's -102 right now
on BetMGM. It's +120 for over 5.5. So
yeah,
if that's what you like, that's where the money is.
I just don't know how I feel about the number. Like that, I just don't think the juice is good enough for 5.5. I mean, 6 catches is a lot, right? But I wouldn't.
That's what he was getting. That's what he was getting last year.
But I also, to be fair, I would not go on the under on that either. Like that's one I would stay away from if you're looking at it. Like I just wanted to get Jess's take, because the line seems off to me to put it at even money. So they're basically begging you to take the over, which is interesting, because then they feel like it's not going to happen.
Yeah. What do you think about James Conner in this game? They set the over-under. They set the projected total for him at 64.5. But you can also get +145 on the alternate if he hits 75.
Yeah, I like that. That's probably where you would want to be on that. The big thing with Conner is that we know he's going to get the touches. It's just when does that slow down, right? But he had 16 attempts in game 1, only 50 yards with the touchdown. I think that the Rams run defense is not going to be as good. So I would lean towards that over 64.5. The one I wanted to get your take on is Kyler's number. Are they baiting us with the 37.5 because he had, or 33.5 because he had 57 in game 1? So they're like, okay, we're gonna go low and see if you take the bait.
Well,
I mean, I don't know.
If you want to go with some laddering, you can also do 50 plus at +275.
Yeah, and that would be an interesting one there. I look at Kyler's rushing. I feel like anytime you're over 30, it's just a dangerous prop. Just because you never know how active he's going to be as a runner in the game.
And those pesky kneel downs.
Yeah.
Those pesky kneel downs at the end of halves can ruin you on those.
So let's go to the passing.
Let me take a look at, Goff only ran once against them.
Yeah, it's not Goff's game, right?
No, but he can move, and that I remember the one run. He's able to move. Let me pull something up. I mean, we can, of course.
Well, while Jess is looking, one of the numbers that I do like this week. Stafford's over under 250.5. I would hammer the over. I think they're going to be able to throw the ball. I mean, we kind of know that going in. The 250.5's at minus 114. So obviously if so again, if you go to his alt passing, 250 plus is minus 114 also. I know it sounds crazy, but at least at 250 you get a push and you get your money back. So take the 250 plus as opposed to the 250.5, where you have to get 251 for the same amount of money,
Yeah.
or the same juice. Little nuggets like that. That's what you come here for.
Kyler hasn't gone for double digits against the Rams.
Yeah, but I
since
mean,
2021.
And the difference being obviously no Aaron Donald now, right? So
yes,
and you even mentioned it earlier. Ernest Jones was a big thorn in the side as well. So it's an interesting number. 33.5 is a wonky number to me. Like I said, I don't prefer to go over 30 for quarterbacks in games. I usually like to stick around 25. I'll go, if it's 30.5, I'll take it. If it's a guy like Kyler or Josh Allen, Lamar, and now, even Jaden Daniels. But like Jess said, the other thing you have to worry about is those kneel downs. He's at 31.5 or 35.
Two kneel downs.
Yeah,
you're at 29 and a half. You're at 29 or you're 31. It's bad. The kicking props, they're not good this week. You don't get any plus money.
No, they've caught on, Jess. It only took
they've been listening to us.
A year and one game.
Oh, let me see. We go with alternate receiving yards.
Yeah, I don't like Kupp's numbers at all. I think he's going to hit all of them, but 85.5 is such a big number, man. And his reception total at 8, like, I mean, this is a guy who is unbelievable. One of the best receivers of the last, of the 2020s. But this is a guy that gets hurt a lot. And we know his usage is going to be through the roof. And that's what worries me, is like he could have 7 catches by halftime and then get another tweak and he's done, right? Like, I don't know. Eight's just such a big number. It feels inevitable too, right? Like it feels like he's going to hit that no issues, but it's just such a big number.
And everybody on the Rams have been getting hurt. Here's an easy one. Longest reception, James Conner over 9.5 at minus 105. It's not great odds, but that seems like an easy one.
Yeah, I like that. The other one, to your point with everybody hurt, the one to look at right now that's interesting is Tyler Johnson his number is only at 37.5. Interesting, or 35.5. Interestingly enough, they don't have any alternative odds for him right now, which makes me think that
you could get him at on BetMGM 50 plus for plus 155.
Oh, that's not great. I was thinking it'd be a little more. Okay. Yeah, because I think they're terrified of what he's going to do this week. Because they just
75 plus though, plus 475.
Yeah, that might be something you take a flyer on. Right?
That's a long shot. That's a long shot on there.
There is one thing I do, again, a couple of the TD props that I do like this week. I don't know why, and it seems to happen every single year, but I would grab Colby Parkinson. I know the Cardinals have been a lot better defending the tight ends, but for some reason, when it comes to Los Angeles, didn't it always feel like Tyler Higbee caught a touchdown against them? Like,
yes.
And there's no Higbee anymore, but I think Colby Parkinson, that's their number one tight end. And then the other one that's kind of funny to me and that's anytime touchdown, obviously. The other one that's kind of funny to me because the price seems kind of out of whack. Uh, that Dortch is plus 390 for an anytime touchdown score. I know that's not his, he's not a big play, but like we said, Tyler loves to feed him. That's just one to watch. If you find better odds somewhere else, Dortch with the amount of targets he's going to get, 8 targets last game. Obviously, McBride had 9 targets last game. I think you're going to be able to find probably better odds than FanDuel. FanDuel's really juiced down their numbers on anytime touchdowns for like obvious
BetMGM
guys.
doesn't even have anytime touchdowns right now. I'm just
Okay, yeah. What I mean by that is, you remember last year we used to talk like James Conner or Kyron Williams in this instance, like 2+ touchdowns would be plus 1,000 or 1,100.
Yeah, yeah.
Kyron Williams 2 touchdowns is plus 410. So like it's genuinely not even worth it. Like there's just no juice in that whatsoever. I mean, those are terrible odds.
Yeah, you've got some total. They BetMGM only thing with touchdowns. They've got some total.
That doesn't surprise me though.
Touchdowns.
Yeah, that's what doesn't. That's why I'm surprised that they have all these props already out. The other one that I like, real quick, and this is like super degenerate status, so like take it for what it is. But we're all here. We're all friends here. In FanDuel, they have Cardinals first drive result and then Rams first drive result. For the Cardinals, I like the first drive result field goal attempt. It's plus 420, so it's really big odds. They seem to be stuck in mud sometimes against the Rams, right? And so punt is obviously the favorite at plus 120. But I think they're going to be able to move the ball a little more this year. I'm just not convinced that they'll be able to score touchdowns consistently. So that first field goal attempt, first drive, plus 420, I'm going to be hitting that this weekend.
So if you want for exact score, Seth, your exact score, Cardinals 24, Rams 21, is plus 12,500, just like 24-20 is for me.
Oh wow! So yeah, I mean, they're thinking this game's going to be close, which makes sense. Let's see, 24-20s plus 11,000, so better for you, and then 24-21s plus 9,500. By the way, that's the lowest number on FanDuel. I didn't even know that before. Actually, sorry, I'm sorry. 27-24 is the lowest at plus 5,000, which is wild to me.
Yeah. They've got Cardinals 27, Rams 24 plus 6,000, Cardinals 27, Rams 20 plus 8,000. Yeah, that's okay. That's looking weird. So I'm looking at these. Where are the Rams wins? Rams. I can't. Anyway, that's wild. Like some of the lower odds are Cardinals wins. That's crazy.
Yeah, right. They are favored, right?
I guess that's true. But yeah, I guess that makes sense. 23-20s plus 6,000. Rams 27, Cardinals 20 is 9,000. Rams 24, Cardinals 20 plus 17.5. Rams 23-20 plus 6,600. Daggum. Would I ever bet an exact score? That seems like a foolish bet. Like that's a throwaway bet because
I do. I have a buddy that hit 2 in one season, and it basically like covers your entire.
It covers your entire year.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of them he hit was like a plus. I want to say like 24,000 or something crazy like that.
That's wild. That's wild. But watch those lines, shop around. Yeah, nobody's paying us, so we don't care which sports book. We just want you to win money. So we're not getting any kickback. SB Nation, they use FanDuel and DraftKings. Or is it just FanDuel this year?
Just FanDuel this year. Yeah, we're done with the
And
draft.
USA Today sites are primarily BetMGM, but you can use FanDuel if you want. But they're not paying us, so
nope.
Pick which one you like. Personally, I like the DraftKings app better than I like BetMGM's app, and DraftKings tends to have more prop options than BetMGM. And Seth is a big fan of FanDuel. So
yeah, the biggest thing I recommend is if you have multiple books available to you, shop odds, because you can get better odds at different sites. And like I said, if you're looking specifically for anytime touchdown scores and you're not going with guys like Dortch or longer shots like Elijah Higgins, who was I think plus 800 and things like that, Trey Benson, the juice is not good anymore on FanDuel. They've really watered it down because they were getting hammered on parlays, like anytime touchdown score parlays, because people were just killing them. So it's just not quite as good as it once was, but their other numbers are good. So I recommend it.
Oh, with that, Seth saying Cardinals 24-21, Cardinals 24, Rams 21. I'm saying Cardinals 24, Rams 20. On Cam's show, he said Rams 24, Cardinals 20. So
let's see if we can go 2-0 on our against the spread with the Cardinals, right?
That would be fantastic, especially since that would mean the Cardinals win.
Right.
And being 1-1 going into that Detroit game and being able to look at it and comfortably feel like they could finish the first 4 games of the season 2-2, that's great. And put the Rams in an 0-2 hole. That would be fun. That will be so much fun. Yes. And with that, we will wrap up this edition of the Rise of C-Red podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the Web. We've been talking Cardinals-Rams. We make our predictions. We've got our matchups. We've got the keys of the game and our props, predictions, and picks. You can catch more coverage on Rise Up C-Red by subscribing to it. You'll get Howard's audio. You'll get my preview show with Cam DeSilva. And we have more shows to come. So it's the full season. You're going to be getting 3, 4, 5 different episodes a week now. Yeah. So we're getting content from all stuff. And definitely go to Revenge of the Birds over there to Seth's site, read his stuff, join in the conversation. They've got a great comment feature, a great community of commenting. Cardswire.com. Also, we've got tons and tons of content there. Read all our stuff, guys. Come on. We've got families. So let's do that.
Exactly.
That's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening as always. We'll be back again next week. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up C-Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise Up Red Sea, be Red C-Red, and of course, Rise Up C-Red.